Kids are usually texting me.
I'd like to make a motion to come back into open session.
I guess
I'll
I should
second
go.
the motion.
All right. All in favor?
Hi.
Any opposed? All right.
So I would also like to make a motion on this RL 24-62 to expedite this.
I second.
Discussion? Or no discussion. All in favor?
Hi.
I think
Any-
we should do a roll call.
Roll
on it.
call?
Yeah,
Okay.
for that, for expedite.
Roll call.
Councilmember Porter,
Aye.
Councilmember Middleton. Aye. Councilmember Kavanaugh,
Aye.
Councilmember Dundon,
Aye.
Councilmember Costi,
Aye.
Councilmember Hotchkiss.
Aye.
Council President Medavetsky.
Aye.
That's 7-0.
And passes. All right. Next, we have,
Thank you.
yes, thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Kent. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, our next
Another one.
one is going to be handled by Councilman Kavanaugh, our chair of our Finance Committee, and it's RL 24-56, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Harding Brooks Agency for the city for workers' compensation insurance. Councilman Kavanaugh.
If you remember the history from a couple of our earliest sessions this year, the city has put out to RFQs, right? Yes, RFQs for some new insurance brokers for the various types of insurance that the city carries. I was able to sit in on some of the pitches for the workers' compensation broker. These are folks that go out and work on behalf of the city to secure, the best insurance rates possible for us. And the additional piece with the workers' compensation brokers and carriers is that they are able to provide a lot of, or should be able to provide a lot of additional training resources and efficiency resources in terms of handling and processing claims and keeping up with them, which in theory should benefit, both employee training and competency in the city and reducing need for workers' compensation claims and also handling them in an efficient manner. We've had, I think, our current broker for quite a long time. So it was sort of, I think, good practice to put these out for new input. I was able to sit in on a couple of those pitches. I did not. I missed the invitation to this particular pitch, but based on the earlier ones, I think Harding Brooks was able, and I'm sure Kent will be able to discuss this, was able to bring a pretty comprehensive package to the table of especially these added functions that they're able to undertake. So I will turn over to Kent to sell us on Harding Brooks, I guess.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so we had 6 different pitches, for this agreement. And as it was stated, so they go out and, there's a marketplace for all the different types of insurances that the university carries, and they go out there in that marketplace and they negotiate on our behalf and get us, the best deals. There's no magic bullet in this, and that all the brokers have access to the same marketplaces and the same deals, more or less. So
there's basically 2 big ones, right?
right, and
Yes.
and there's 2 primary ones, exactly, and that's what it all goes towards. So you don't really have that much of an option. But so we've been with one company for a long time, and they all work with Right Risk, and so ultimately the other services that they're able to provide became the most important. I don't know about most important, but a very important part of the negotiations. And as you've heard me discuss here in other formats, we have definite training deficit, and, kind of, personnel development, professional development deficit. And so one of the things that in particular I was paying attention to during all the pitches was what kind of services and support do these companies provide in that area? Because it is a pretty big one. You're all probably familiar that we have the EAP program and we work with ENI as kind of like the separate training branch of the EAP group. And that's who facilitates like the annual, state mandated training that we do online. So that comes through ENI. So there was a couple companies who, again, they were pretty vanilla, just like everybody else was and has been, including the folks who that we previously worked with. And I think one of the turnoffs there was that they do some of these things, but they didn't really push them or get us really involved in those things. And so their pitch was not as strong. There were two different groups who provided pretty good presentations, and the councilman got to sit on one of them. And so you could see the difference. The difference was palpable between the services that are provided. So I think what the city's going to really pick up, a lot of added value, I think, in going with this proposal is the employee support network, the training. They have awesome training modules online. They have a self-serve, which again, our current situation, we don't have anything really to go on, online and do self-service. That they have a lot of expertise. They're local. That was another pretty important thing, that they're a local company. And
Vestal based, I think.
they're
Yeah.
Vestal. Yeah, they're headquartered in Vestal, and also looked at that all of the people, who lead their departments, or executives, that kind of thing. They're all local. Because sometimes they'll say we're headquartered in Vestal and folks live in, San Diego or something. But these folks are all here. So it'll be nice that they all live here, and the service is really important. When you have a question, they can come right here and we can see people, in person. So that was pretty important for us also. So they have great risk management services. I talked, you can see on the documents that you have, their list of similar accounts. I talked to the folks down in Scranton because I think that's the most similar to us. And they're very satisfied, and they sang their praises that they're really on the spot. They get them good rates, but again, it's not highly competitive. Actually, the rate, everybody gets more or less the same. But that their service is outstanding. They've got a good risk management program that they come out regularly and make sure proactively that doing things, and we have things in place that are going to keep our employees safe from getting in trouble. That we have good, and there's good training to for them to do that. So that's really important. And again, that they will partner with us in terms of training, and that includes manuals. So they have a nice online manual creation system. And again, I think it's something that I've seen that most of the processes that we have in place, they seem to be a little bit tribal in that, they're just word of mouth, and that's because we've done it that way, but there's just not a lot in writing. And I think that's something that we really need to do, is put pen to paper. Sorry for being so archaic, but key punch that in and get some manuals written. And they have a great tool for doing that online. And also just emergency protocols in general. They worked with Scranton. They built a emergency protocol across the city from scratch. And we need help with ours also. So they definitely had a lot of the expertise and the software and local support that I feel like we needed right now to really kick our program into high gear. So they checked all of our boxes.
And then just to kind of remind everybody that the brokers get paid from the insurance companies. So
Right.
the value added services they're giving back to us is sort of almost like a rebate out of their, out of
Correct.
what they take a cut off that we weren't getting from our other company essentially.
Right.
And if we are not happy, how long is this agreement mandatory or?
I think it's,
I
yeah,
I didn't.
2 1-year original renewal with
So-
option to renew. Yeah.
So if we don't like it, we can opt out pretty quickly. But
Right.
okay.
Right.
So low risk, high potential reward, I
Yeah.
think, with these folks.
And I think in 2 years, we'll know because like I say, in terms of, those, putting together the manuals and the trainings, we'll know within 1 or 2 years if this is heading in the right direction, at least in terms of those things.
Okay. I did reach out to basically all of the references on the reference list today, and they were all singing praises, mostly relating to responsiveness, just that if they have a question, the answer is
Yeah.
given in detail quickly.
Right.
So thank you to, let's see, I got a message with the Village of Port Dickinson. I think Scranton wrote back to me, and a message with YMCA. Might have been another 1 or 2 that responded, but
Mhm.
thank you to them for responding. I wanted to just, since we were talking about the terms, just to throw in that the term will be for 3 years with 2 1-year optional renewals, just to make sure that that's corrected on the meeting
right.
here. Yep.
Could have brought my glasses down.
Is there, I guess maybe that's kind of directed at Councilman, Member Porter, maybe to have some sort of follow-up meetings as a, discussion to hear how it's playing out if we go with this contract.
This is in the finance committee, not employees.
No, I know, but the training manuals, all of that would be in employees, no? Right, I'm saying the follow-up, if we
Yeah,
go
the
with that,
manuals are gonna be for the workman's
Ah,
comp. That's
yeah.
not so much the employees to be working
okay,
with workers when make sure they're educated on workman's comp.
okay, because I'm like seeing all sorts of topics of workplace safety, industrial topics, sexual harassment prevention, management practices, like I'd be interested to know if those things are actually being used. And that I was seeing that as an employee discussion, but well, I can take it offline. Any further discussion? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kent.
And with.
Thank you all.
Thank you. With that, we turn it over to Councilman Hotchkiss, Chair of Planning for RL 24-61, an ordinance to amend the 24 budget for the demolition of a fire damaged property at 122 Henry. And we invite down our presenter, Deputy Mayor Hyman.
Hey, Megan. This seems pretty straightforward, but do you want to give us an overview?
Sure. So this is an ordinance to amend the 2024 budget, as it says, to pay for the demolition of a fire damaged property at 122 Henry Street. As council knows, there was a fire at this property last month. It was deemed an imminent danger and required emergency demolition. So this legislation allows the city to pay the contractor for that work. It also amends the budget to increase anticipated revenue, as we do with these fire damage demolitions, as we seek reimbursement for the cost.
And you're gonna get that from the owner, correct?
Yeah, so this one's a little bit different because this is one of the properties included in the Anzart settlement, which is still ongoing, but it's something that we anticipate dealing with as part of the closing on those properties.
We hadn't closed on this though, correct? It was
That's
still-
correct. Yeah, the city didn't own it at the time of the fire. We're still in the process of closing on it.
So we'd be relying on the insurance or lack thereof of the previous owner.
So in this case,
Or-
it likely wouldn't be the previous owner's insurance, but it's something that would be worked out as part of that settlement. Am I right on that, Sophie?
So when the fire happened, the building was basically a shell could have been blown over with a stiff wind. Binghamton Fire Department could not release the scene until it was demoed. So it was an emergency under the fire code. We're authorized to take action. However, we made sure that we communicated that to the owner and dotted our i's and crossed our t's. And it is something that will be taken into account. And we've requested as part of the final settlement, as you know, it involves an extensive number of properties. So, and it is an ongoing case. We can't get too far into the weeds on that, but if any member has a question, they can reach out to me.
Any, Councilman Hotchkiss?
Does Gorick have any competition in town? Because I know it's like, it seems like it's all.
Actually, LCP Construction will bid against Gorick, but Gorick has actually done work with the city for probably 50 years of demoing houses and buildings.
LCP has bid on blight reduction projects too, and I believe has received bids in the past.
Got you. Is it, so it's, I'm trying to remember. I think there was they have like a contract to do like the emergency service for demolition of like dangerous structures. Is that?
There are very few companies that are available at this short of a notice, and this was a very tricky property to take down due to its proximity to the surrounding buildings and that infrastructure. So, I mean, on a case-by-case basis, it can certainly be evaluated, but they're primarily available for these types of large demolition projects, along with, I believe, another provider, Megan, correct?
I'm sorry.
There's another company that's available as well.
Yes, LCP. Yes.
So it doesn't have to go out to bid, but there's a reason it doesn't go out to bid because it's like the timeliness, you're trying to handle an emergency. Right. Okay. I think that's all I have.
Anyone else? All right. I think we're good on that one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Megan.
Next, we have Councilman Middleton, Chair of Municipal and Public Affairs, RL 24-42, an ordinance amending Chapter 400 of the City Charter, Vehicles and Traffic, adding the prohibition of operation of off-road vehicles in the city of Binghamton. And
Okay. I guess, this is an ordinance amending chapter 400 of the city charter, vehicles, traffic, adding the prohibition of operation of off-road vehicles in the city of Binghamton. And I think, who added that in? I think,
so I added that.
and Mike did too, right?
No,
No.
I had side conversations with him at various points, and I wanted to make sure we had a group discussion on this. I know there's a number of kind of things that maybe we could add, change, modify, see if we can get it to a point where it's checked out and something we're comfortable
With voting on?
addressing, voting on one way or another.
Okay.
So
We're voting on it now.
No,
Oh,
no.
So there was-
She just opened it back up for discussion.
oh,
Yeah, individual discussions that I've had relating to topics like who gets the money from the fines, right? So right now, my understanding it goes to the Binghamton Police Department. There was some discussion that I had, I think with Dundon, over e-bikes, making sure that we specifically add the language in for protection for e-bikes. So I think Councilman Hotchkiss had a conversation with me about looking at where the money might go. So I wanted to make sure we had a group discussion on that. I don't even remember who I had a discussion with relating to the fines and whether or not we wanted to keep them at the levels they're at or
That was me,
lower
yeah.
them. Maybe that was
Yeah.
one of you.
Also.
Yeah.
just considering certain things involving, maybe even having some kind of a bike safety kind of commission or drive or
What?
some kind of commission and some where rules or something can be in play
Yeah.
for people to go to, especially when they have offenses.
Mhm.
involving certain things
Okay.
with the ATVs.
And I think, I want to say, Councilman Hotchkiss, I think you mentioned maybe using some of the money towards youth at some point.
Yeah,
And I also wanted to introduce this picture that I got from Mike, Councilman Dundon. Because there was some discussion that we had over like, how are people actually using these vehicles? I know in my district, there's a lot of people that are kind of harassing their neighbors with them. But Mike, Councilman Dundon sent me this photo of a gentleman who is quite clearly going somewhere. He's wearing multiple backpacks
And I also mentioned
on
to you,
destination.
I also mentioned to you that people sometimes use it for transportation.
Yeah,
For transportation, for going to work, or, and just more of a classification on what, be considered, because as we leave it to the discretion of police, they can, a person who has a 5cc motor to just their bike and not an electric bike or anything like that, and just have it just to their bike, it could be considered maybe a dirt bike, just because of the motor on it. So,
I do have an amendment that I
Yeah.
was gonna go over with corporate counsel. I just, as it's been sitting and I knew it was coming back to work session, I didn't run right to see her on it.
So do we have a list of these
Yeah, I
things we
mean-
can compile right now? Like, I mean, we're legislating live right now.
right
folks.
now, yeah, we're
So
here.
if we do it,
Well, hold
Okay.
on. So if there's, I mean, just because it's never
Yeah.
good to answer questions on the fly, if any member that wants to propose a change or an amendment can just email me, and we can chat about it individually, you know. after
okay.
Today.
Okay.
well, I
I mean,
mean, I think we
me and
need
Mike
to-
would be happy to work together. We have talked about a few things involving.
So if we're sending this back to the clerks to work on and Sophie to work
And-
on, what things do anyone want to put out their thing?
Yep, here. I would recommend that any of the fines or proceeds from the impounded vehicles go into a youth programming line for the budget. That was one of them, and I think the fine amounts are basically arbitrary right now. If we reduce what's here in half, it's still 5x or 5 or 6 times more than the minimum amount that they're currently being charged or
Okay.
being impounded for one day. So, I think that's still a hefty punishment. I don't know. That's what I was thinking. There's those two things.
Have to go to my car.
I don't know.
I would like to ensure that there's tracking and reporting of impoundments because we don't have those detailed numbers right now.
Specific impoundment,
Yeah.
if that would be more
So
more
I would
clear.
like that included. That's my amendment.
Yes, I think yes, it was very clear that while we finally made it was not specialized to ATVs or dirt bikes, and it did show police pounding fewer ATVs and fewer
vehicles.
unregistered vehicles year on year, based on what was presented to us via email from the mayor.
Yeah, 'cause it wasn't very
So,
specific. They just left it. to
So
whatever
yes, so
it
it'd be
was.
interesting to see what's actually happening in terms of enforcement.
I know that, like I said, what I was thinking of, just, that's in my car right now, and we don't have time for me to go back to the car. Unfortunately, but what I was also implementing was also dealing with the fines and trying to make it where the funding goes not necessarily to police, but back into some kind of discretionary fund. And I was agreeing with Nate on that with youth, even with having a school or some kind of form of education involving people who paying $150 into it and were to be part of that for that education, as well as those who with an offense of $150, also with a possible 10% on getting their vehicle back, especially if we left it to the discretionary of police. So in other words, I'm not saying ATVs will have to be out, but if we make it specific for certain vehicles like electric bikes, which through this, looking through the amendment that the mayor has put, I haven't seen where it clarifies it, where it does, the state has clarified, but here for this, the city doesn't clarify it to keep it straight with that. So I would, so if people's bikes are being taken, they have a way to get them back at a certain percentage back, especially with the offense that they have. So that was one way of me was coming up. That's why I said I don't, the paper I had when I was filled out is in my car at the moment. So
Hi, welcome down, welcome down. Welcome to the conversation.
Thank you. Just a couple things on this, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. I know no one was listed as the presenter on this. A few things, though. I would urge the council to act quickly in considering this and putting forth any amendments or changes or suggestions you might have. As you all know, as the weather gets warmer, these incidents increase. That's where it really becomes a safety concern in our neighborhoods, a quality of life issue. And then not to mention, like when these are being ridden in parks or places like the Ben Franklin Field, where families will increasingly be going, that obviously creates other public safety issues. The one thing on the fines and possibly lowering them, I think Officer Brown stated this last time, but we're basically using the Syracuse legislation as a model here. That's where our figures were selected for the fines. But the main reason behind the fine and specifically the redemption fee is to create the deterrent. So right now, these vehicles or these off-road vehicles are illegal already under New York state law, but the problem is BPD doesn't feel they have the ability to enforce them to the extent that they can go out and impound a vehicle tomorrow. The person who is riding it unlawfully can go the next day and pay $50 and the vehicle is back on the street. They've seen that happen.
Respectfully, not very often.
exactly.
It actually happened with the
Frank,
No, yes, that is, yes, but I'm saying just purely on the numbers of total impounded vehicles. It's not like this is happening on a weekly basis. And
so
so,
the data that the mayor had shared on the number of impounded vehicles, to someone's point earlier, that did not, BPD currently doesn't keep a distinction between off-road and just all impounded vehicles, and the mayor has committed going forward to that, tracking that
yes,
data.
and we'll put it in the legislation, I think.
Yeah, I would encourage you to do so.
But again, when they're literally impounding all vehicles every year, I mean, it's not happening very often, is what I'm saying. So I think Councilman Hotchkiss's point was that increasing the fines 5 times is probably enough of a deterrent versus 10 times, because the amount will still be basically more than these things cost new.
Sure.
But
Sure. Yeah, I guess if the point though is to deter the activity, Syracuse has seen very good results with the fine as it is. But just wanted to jump in there. My primary thing, just to urge you to do this quickly and present any suggestions or questions to Corp Council, because with the warm weather, we'll be seeing this more frequently.
so another thought that came up for me while rereading this, related to the, and goes to that picture that I gave with the gentleman using one for transportation. That right here, it says, often occurring late at night, and that's certainly what I've been hearing about in my district, that, there's people that are joyriding until 3 a.m. up and down certain streets, keeping everyone up and making it hard for people to get to work. So I was kind of thinking about, like, is there a way to differentiate, for example, like the people that were joyriding at Benjamin Franklin at night, purposeless, kind of just destructive activity, versus this gentleman who's probably going grocery shopping, and maybe have differentiated fines between daylight and nighttime, or something like that, to really go after who we want to go after, which is these people that are causing real nuisance to people. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there as an idea.
I appreciate
discussion.
I appreciate the thought. I think the implementation would be difficult, and I think you start to put the police officers in a difficult situation trying to determine intent. I think it makes the whole thing stickier, unfortunately.
sunset versus not sunset, like nighttime versus daytime.
Are you talking about penalties in itself during the daytime and nighttime?
I was suggesting that the idea, again, I've never worked on any legislation like this, but it was something that came to me that there are people who are using it
Right.
during the day for grocery shopping, which while still illegal, is maybe not the people that we're trying to jack up fines on
Right.
compared to the people that are riding up and down, bothering their neighbors until 3 a.m, just going back and forth and back and forth and back and
That's
forth.
why,
Right? So the example of the riders that were at Benjamin Franklin, who were then out at Benjamin Franklin the following night, I think is what Councilwoman Middleton and I heard from one of the traffic officers. So those activities are happening at night. So I was bringing up the idea that potentially the additional fines we would want to target at nighttime riding as opposed to when the safety issues are higher and the public nuisance issues are higher and the quality of life issues are higher, as opposed to, and it's already illegal during the day. So I'm just throwing it out there as an idea.
I mean, it's already illegal during the day as well as if it's legal in the day, it's legal at night. So it's all together one. My thing was just, I just want distinction. Just like that, what you're talking about, I want distinction. And I don't want necessarily a blatant response from police to use discretionary acts to just take away people's transportation who are just like that gentleman there. So that's what I'm agreeing that safety and quality of life is important. And nuisance is an issue. So with that, but I just want,
Well, that's part of my amendment on the exemptions, which obviously corporate counsel has to approve, but I do have it written in there that the operator has to be in compliance with New York State traffic law.
which brings me back to my whole point of having a lesson or bike lessons or safety lessons, traffic lessons, dealing with bikes and bicycles on that, so that way they can be compliant. And also you pay a fee into it to even help, in a way of putting towards a certain fund or towards a fund like a youth program or something.
That's kind of a slippery slope though, because that's like taking over, having the city teach kids how to drive a car. I mean, you're kind of on that same teeter and slope.
Well, that's another thing. Either ban kids from actually being permitted to ride the bikes or being at a certain age to be able to ride a bike. So,
Do we, Deputy Mayor's here, do we know, in the Syracuse law, have they covered the sort of thing that Councilman Porter has talked about as far as the bicycles that have been converted with these small gas motors? I mean, those seem in some ways even more dangerous than like ATVs, which are made with braking to at least, the brakes are set up for a motorized vehicle and a bike is not.
I'm actually not certain that's covered in this legislation. E-bikes are handled separately.
I don't mean e-bikes. I mean, these are bikes that have been converted with gasoline engines. They're essentially homemade motorcycles almost.
Yeah, but they fall under the guidelines of a moped. So if
Mhm.
they're under a certain mile an hour, you don't have to have a driver's license. I believe if the DMV, if it's under 35 miles an hour, you don't have to have a driver's license. So you
But a
fall into
moped
that
is
as a moped.
but a moped has brakes.
A
But he's
moped's
talking-
road legal, yeah.
But what I've seen with those people do have brakes that are able to be able to stop them.
Yeah, you can
No.
legally buy motors to put on a bicycle and it's still compliant with New York State traffic law.
Is there a distinction that you're aware of in this legislation? I'm not sure if I'm following the discussion that's happening here and what the legislation in the vehicle and traffic law distinguishes between.
Yeah, I mean, I think the
in here.
concern, so the legislation covers, motorized trail bikes, and certain modifications, motocross, dirt bikes. It doesn't include bicycles. Bicycles are accepted, e-bikes are accepted.
State, yeah, but
Under the New York State.
even New York State law, right? But it's
So
not-
I mean,
it's not
certainly,
amended
I mean,
into
if you
this,
look up
it's
the
not put into
definition of
this.
bicycle, right, it includes the e-bikes. So, I mean, I think the intent here is to these certain vehicles are already not legal to drive on city streets for a number of reasons. But I think the primary concern is these unregistered and uninsured vehicles, should they collide with a person, another motor vehicle, a personal property, there's no insurance, right, to cover whatever accident may occur because they're not registered or insured. They're not legal to register.
There's a bike rider though.
So,
There's a bike rider, guy could ride out in traffic and he's not insured, he's not registered. And a lot of
Sure.
these bikes though are sold for on-road use where the law states anything sold for off-road use.
Mhm.
So if it's sold for on-road use and you'd be in compliance with traffic law, then they should be exempt.
So this legislation does not add anything new under the vehicle and traffic law. Like anything that's already illegal remains illegal. It's not adding anything to
Just
it.
enforcing, right?
It's helping to
Yeah,
enforce,
enforce.
yes.
You
Well,
will,
but there's no clarification on the exemptions except for bicycles. It doesn't say e-bikes in the law. That's why I wanted to talk with corporate counsel because I have a couple things that I think should be covered in the exemption. So they don't fall in that gray area. So that way we dot our i's and cross our t's.
To make it explicit.
yes.
So, and my question along those lines is these bicycles that have been converted with gasoline engines that are not purpose-built e-bikes or converted with e-bike kits, but that they have these small noisy gas engines that are what? Allow me.
Like 5cc,
5
like
cc's.
5cc.
So that are buzzing around. I don't know their status. So this is, I'm asking a question. I do not know their status under VTL. So,
yeah, so certainly we can look into
Okay.
to that, to the e-bikes and to clarifying if you want to explicitly list what is and isn't covered. Yeah, so I think,
For corporate counsel, we'll talk about it. I have it.
yeah, so like I said earlier, I mean, I think the best way to proceed is just to forward me your questions. We can get something together and then revisit.
So then I guess I'll.
I
I'll
think we have a
put the-
nice, I like this. We're live legislating.
Yeah.
I think this is
It's great.
good. I think this is fun. So between all of these I mean, suggestions and input, can we get a functional resolution together for next business meeting, do we think? Not Wednesday, obviously.
That's what I was gonna ask is what do we need to be able to move forward and what time frame do council members think we can do it in? Council members slash corporation council. So
So what I'm hearing is just,
amend,
we need to
mostly,
look into certain amendments regarding tracking, fines and exceptions. Those are the 3 bullet points that I took away.
Mhm.
And I'll be chatting with members, getting something together and certainly with a view towards the April 10th meeting, perhaps.
that sound good to everybody? Okay,
Sounds
great.
good to me.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
My last piece on that was I had requested body cam footage of the arrests that were at Benjamin Franklin, basically because they were, I don't know, it's being used as like a case study for this, that was denied. And I had appealed, with the mayor, but I think it would be useful to see if this is going to turn into a crackdown situation where you're promoting more arrests, what those actually look like. And if that's what I don't know, to know what we're actually promoting here.
We
Yeah,
can,
that's good.
we can try and subpoena it.
Megan,
I don't know if you can.
Wasn't it-
subpoena-
It was an ongoing day.
I was gonna say, I don't think you
Yeah,
can
you
subpoena
might
it
as
for an
well just
ongoing
sit here.
investigation.
Might as well sit here
That's
and
a
just.
corporate counsel question.
take
Oh,
a
all the
look.
way back up to the top row. So I believe that request was denied because it's an active investigation. And that's all I wanted to put on record for that.
Good. Are there any historical cases of this situation where we might be able to look at historical?
And so I didn't fully hear what you were saying, Councilman, but I think you referred to it as it was being used as a case
Case
study.
study.
And certainly that, I mean, what happened with that Ben Franklin incident, it was, I don't want to say unprecedented, but it was atypical of when BPD impounds these off-road vehicles and that those individuals involved attacked police officers. So I wouldn't, in that sense, use it as a case study, but more of just an example of these off-road vehicles are being driven on park properties, school properties. They're presenting public safety issues. I don't know if I can say anything more than I've already shared.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you so much. And now we're ready to move on, right? Good. Okay, so our last
Thank you,
RL.
Megan.
Thank you so much. Our last RL for the evening, RL 24-54, a resolution calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. And the chair that will be leading this section is Councilman Hotchkiss, who is the committee chair for Special Rules and Studies. And we have a guest presenter, Amari Pavar. Thank you.
There you go.
Welcome.
Okay. Hi again.
Hi, Amari. Thanks for sticking around.
Yeah, no problem.
And also thank you for your very thorough documentation and explanation. Is there anything that you want to start with?
Yeah,
Excuse me.
so my hope is that everything I submitted today can make this easier for everyone. A lot of background information on various topics, hopefully organized in a way that is understandable. Additionally, the resolution itself that I submitted is it's based on other successful ceasefire resolutions. It's very typical of what a city council says on Gaza right now. It only has 2 resolve clauses that really cut to the 2 most urgent things that we feel are probably, hopefully, the easiest to compromise on and the easiest to discuss. And then the other new thing is that I didn't submit it yet because I want to give people more time to sign it, but there's a petition for this with 245 signatures last I checked, as well as 55 statements asking for this. So that's just the rundown of everything I have today. I'm here for questions though, of course.
Middleton.
Hi, just a quick question. I was looking at this and I've been researching and still, if you can dumb it down for me, what, you said other cities have adopted the ceasefire. What does that, actually do? Like what, just like kind of explain it on the record, like what, that would do and how would, Binghamton, City Council be involved in this process?
Yeah. So the only action that the resolution calls for is sending a copy of the resolution to higher representatives. So basically what it does is it's a much more powerful signal than any one constituent or any number of constituents in Binghamton calling for this through protests and through emails to our representatives, because that gets lost in the slush and it gets tallied into another number. Meanwhile, a city council doing it says something a lot stronger and a lot more impactful, especially this count is definitely outdated. This is from like 2 weeks ago, but I know of 84 city councils that have passed similar resolutions. And that growing number is what calls on the branches of government that actually have power in this situation to listen to their constituents asking for a different policy.
I understand. Just a few other things. I do know that, I like watching the news and I have family, who, who've been updating me, people have been updating me on this. One of the things, some of us might be worried about, is it like a rush for this to get done on city council? I always ask, like, does this have to be an expedited situation? Like, could we take a look at it and like review it, for a while just to see? Because, this is very important. It also is very controversial with people. I don't, any harm against anyone, I'm against, like, completely. But I, would like to, to look some more and, some more information. Would that be okay for us to really like take a look at it, have some discussion?
Yeah, the sense of urgency comes from 2 things. One, there was a report released between the time that this was written and edited, so it's included right at the end, it says that famine for 1.1 million people in northern Gaza is likely to begin, which means mass starvation and a beginning of a die-off. Famine is a very, very technical term, between now and May. So there is a very real sense of urgency for the loss of life. In terms of city council discussing it, obviously that is up to everyone here, and it's much, much more important that a resolution that is good and is compromised on it. That is very important, but there is obviously this to consider as well.
So knowing that our national representatives are already on this, Chuck Schumer for the Democrats, Joe Biden, do you really think a city signing on is going to draw any more attention or do make that much of a difference?
So in terms of higher representatives, they're not calling for a permanent ceasefire. They're calling for a temporary pause in different language, which is what they've
6
been.
weeks.
Yeah, six weeks is what is hopefully is what's trying to be negotiated in Qatar. Right now, earlier today, there was a UN Security Council resolution, which is 2 weeks. Temporary pauses like this happened earlier in the war. It was a pause, people got an amount of relief, and then the march towards famine continued. So that's the word permanent is extremely important in this case and has a huge difference in terms of lives saved. So there is, the needle is being moved towards what the majority of Democrats and Republicans are asking for, but it's not there yet. And we can see uncommitted votes, protests, and city council resolutions probably have been a major factor in the needle moving this far. So I would say absolutely, this is more prudent than ever.
Yeah, because I was just thinking if you're only going to get a 6 weeks temporary ceasefire, wouldn't you rather be off like in Albany or at the UN and getting more people out there? I mean, we can sign on to this and seeing that there's only 4 other municipalities in New York, according to your paperwork, that signed on to this. I mean, I just don't see where we're going to make a difference or anybody's going to pay attention to little old Binghamton signing on to a resolution at the national level.
Yeah, it's definitely the difference between, you know, one person standing on a corner with a sign and a protest, because the big significant thing is the number going up. Little towns like Talent, Oregon and things like that have also passed ceasefire resolutions, and they get included in this growing number. And that's just as important as Binghamton specifically, because I also talk about it in the packet a fair bit. Binghamton does have not unique, but a relatively potent connection with military contractors and manufacturers. So there is a unique reason for Binghamton to sign on to this as well, but it is also that growing number.
Do you know if like New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, or any of the major municipalities in our country, do you know if they've signed on to this?
Chicago, Detroit, St. Paul, and a couple of other really large ones in California.
And they were all on city council, or were they?
All of those examples were city councils. And then also the Hawaii State Senate just passed it. I'm not sure how far along that is, but I know that the Hawaii State Senate did that.
So the number is growing, you know, because everybody seems to be tired of higher administration not listening. So
Yeah, Hawaii was just a couple days ago.
well, I do commend you for coming here. I do commend you for writing this out so I can read it further. I even understand what's going on in Gaza. And I just know I can only speak for myself. That like I have mentioned plenty times during public comment, or that I'd rather be on the side where against genocide than being on this just to sit and wait. So I do commend you for at least coming up with this legislation or resolution to come up with so that we can try to stop this.
Thank you.
Councilman Kavanaugh?
I have some of Councilman Dundon's, we had a very long, very fruitful talk. I think Amari, and I also commend you on the detail and comprehensiveness of what you put together. And I think the aims of the language in the resolution itself are very of a kind of universal consideration of humanitarian needs and not from a particular sort of political or philosophical viewpoint other than well-being. But I still share a lot of Councilman Dundon's concerns, and a concern that is almost the opposite in that if a body like us or a group of people coming and trying to do a thing with a body like this and passing a resolution, is it wishing thoughts and prayers on a slightly larger scale, something that makes us feel more comfortable when we should continue to feel fundamentally uncomfortable with what's going on. So I almost worry that it's a gesture would be symbolic in the worst way. But I've not come to a decision on how I feel about this resolution, and we'll be definitely mulling it over, as I think some of the rest of us will be as well. So.
Councilmember Porter.
To that, I would say all I can think of is South Africa. If something like this was brought up to, they're during the time in apartheid in South Africa as the Afrikaners were actually rolling into Soweto, and during the march when those people just protested peacefully, just marched, sang through the streets, and was mowed down. So my question is that if there was a resolution like this back then, maybe there would have been a little bit much more quicker, and much more that Madiba would have been free. And the Madiba is Nelson Mandela. So my whole point is that something like this is just as important, and people all around other places are actually getting in on it. I mean, we can make a decision on it, whatever, and I know we all make differences. The whole point is that it needs something that need to be said, that you stand against it. That's, again, my opinion.
Thank you, Councilman Porter. Anybody else? Councilman Hotchkiss.
Sure. I'd like to respond to Councilman Kavanaugh's comment. I don't think that this is something that is purely symbolic, and I don't think it'll be unnoticed by our congressman or senator or our governor even. I do think I really do appreciate you, Amari, for putting this together and being persistent in organizing around this issue. I know you're passionate about it, and it's something that is it's something that needs action to be taken on, and there needs to be pressure in order for that action. And when you can't access the higher levels of power, I understand why you're coming here to this body so that we can move this up the chain of command. And I'm supportive of this. I would like to move this forward. I don't know what else to say, really. I've read through all your documentation. I think it's really thorough and well thought out. And I think the one spot that just like highlighted for me was that on page 12, to call for a ceasefire is to acknowledge that the cycle of violence in Israel and Palestine conflict will not be solved with further violence. Instead, the root cause of the conflict has to be addressed. And I think that is what we're attempting to do here in little old Binghamton. I don't want to keep rambling, but yeah, I think this is important that we move this forward, and there's been enough attention on it and people in our community asking for it. I don't think it's going to be a common occurrence for us to weigh in or take action on geopolitical issues, but to the point where things reach such a fever pitch and they're so harrowing, and I think we have the responsibility to do what we can to uplift the voices of our community that are paying attention to this, so. And that's all.
That's worth mentioning as well, that whatever effect it will have globally, nationally, it will have a very significant effect on our constituents as well. It'll show that, you know, Binghamton, the city council, the body representing people is standing up for what's right. And that definitely plays a real significant impact, especially to those with family in the region, those most affected.
And see, my pause though is, so we have this issue today, 2 years, if there's another geopolitical issue that asks for something similar, are we going to be involved in every geopolitical issue that comes across that's hot in the national media at that time versus staying focused on what our local issues are?
And to that, I would say it depends on what it is and where it does stand on, where you do have to stand up against something. And it does call for that. Sometimes some of those things do call for you need to stand up.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it does mean you need to stand up and say something.
Oh, yeah.
And stand up and show that you're representing, because actually not, believe it or not, we do have Muslim community here,
Oh, I know.
and they actually are voters. So it would be behoove to
But we
us,
have this,
behoove to us to recognize some of these people
well, you
and
also
recognize the
have-
humanity, humanity.
You also have Jewish constituents that live in this city that are voters too. So you can't ostracize one for the other on personal beliefs.
But there's also those Jewish, there are also those Jewish constituents who are against this as well.
Be surprised if that's not both sides of the fence.
One other thing worth mentioning, the last similar thing to come to the Binghamton City Council that is similar to what's happening today was in 2017, when there was similar outcry, similar fear, and a somewhat similar situation. And that's 5 years ago. But
That's kind of what I'm worried though. Are we opening up a can of worms that every few years we're going to be focused? It might not even be our council, but are we going to be focused? And then we have our attention drawn about something that's geopolitical when there's other stuff that we could be working on locally. That's my only concern. I mean, at the end of the day, that's why we have national representatives. That's why we have state representatives. That's why we have county legislators. So we all kind of stay in our lane and make sure what we were elected for, we focus on.
But-
And I don't disagree with you. We do have to make a stand. And if something sits personally with you, I would speak up. And I mean, I'm not saying I'm against this. I'm just saying I'm worried that we're going to open up a can of worms, that anytime there's a big geopolitical thing, it's going to overshine what we're doing locally. And our job is to be local politicians.
We didn't ever give up the idea of what we're doing today. We always will be putting in legislation all the time. We will always be putting in all the things that needs to be done locally. You can, both things can happen at the same time.
No,
Yeah.
I just want to just add in, I understand what you're both saying. What Mike is just kind of saying is that I agree that we definitely need to do something. We definitely need to take a stand on this. But however, we still want to make sure that we are still taking care of the needs. And like you said, Alamni, we can do both. However, I don't know how to say it. I'm not gonna say anything because I don't want to say something or say it in off. But I understand both sides of it. We do have to come to an agreement because this is wrong, and we know that no one should be treated poorly, tortured, starved. We know that. So, I know we all agree on that part that, we care about everyone. But, to that, I understand your part that, we can do both. And I also understand Mike's part that we want to, I honestly, just from my thoughts and, already, we kind of already have because we're new and coming in, we already have a stigma already. And, it's unfortunate. And I'm not saying that this would bring any type of stigma, but on to what Mike was saying is that he just wants to make sure that we're intentional in everything we do. So that's what I was saying. It's not about Gaza at all, but it's just as us being new city council, as the things that have already transpired so far, what he's really saying is that he wants to make sure we don't have like a stigma. So that's all. I was just interpreting.
Further discussion?
That's the mom in me, sorry.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for coming down.
Thank you so
Thank you, Omar.
much.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, thank you, Omari.
And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. All right. Thank you. Have a good